Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have our special guest, Dave Powers from Objective Personality. If you guys don't know about Objective Personality already, I have an interview with Shannon linked below. It's bringing science to personality. And what more could you ask for than that? So Dave, could you tell us a bit about Objective Personality?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of got into it kind of in a backwards way. We originally started it doing entrepreneurship and we did sales on the internet. We did RC airplanes and stuff. And so we had used Myers-Briggs and personality types for part of the business and for sales and stuff like that. And then we just kind of indirectly kind of started to dabble around with, could we possibly objectively track or type personality to any degree, and flounder around with that for a few years. Didn't really get it to work. And then finally started kind of getting more serious and defining terms and kind of discovering binary coins in the code. And then just kind of slowly started taking over from there. So we kind of shifted our focus more on the personality stuff. And so here we are now. We have the YouTube channel and then the website where we specialize and focus full time on really kind of defining and tracking these personality coins and patterns, and then teaching them on YouTube and in our class and stuff. So that's kind of a quick summary there.
That's awesome. Where the scientific method meets personality and Jungian typology.
Yeah. Unexpectedly. Didn't like this is, it was like, it's not something we planned on, never saw myself doing something like this when I was 25,
It was a nice twist to your life.
Yeah, totally.
That benefits everyone as a result.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, you talked a bit about the concept of 1% gains before, and I was wondering what you meant by that. So could you go a bit into it?
Yeah, that's stuff that I'm sharing from my personal NIFI, like my personal introverted world of kind of more or less looking back of what gets me going when I'm accidentally doing things right and then trying to reproduce that. It's when I'm kind of shifting my mindset more towards how can I just get 1% better over the next 3 months, or looking back over the last 3 months. Like the last 3 months have been really hard for everybody. It's June of 2020. It's been one hell of a year, this whole year, And so it's very easy, the default stage, to feel overwhelmed, not good enough, I'm not getting anywhere, not going anywhere. You might have some type of dreams or visions, whether they're conscious and direct or indirectly, I just want life to be better, but you don't quite know how to define that. And just seeing that seems to be a default program that just pulls you out to the ocean of despair and depressed and lose energy and stuff. So when I just randomly started asking the right questions of I'll ask myself now, am I worse than I was 3 months ago? And I'm no, things are not worse. And then I can kind of go, okay, are they better? Well, I guess they're a little better. And then training myself to be happy with that, because that is more realistic. That's, even when you're reverse watching somebody who's very successful and happy and they're in a place they want to be, they're usually older. And then you go track their backstory. It is this little breadcrumb line of things were really bad or neutral, and then started to kind of get better over time. So that's the 1%. I tell myself 1% every 3 month kind of growth, set my goals realistic. It allows things to be extra credit. So some months things are better than that, and then I'm feeling better. So kind of a mind trick,
Yeah, it's so true. Those 1% gains matter so much, because all growth is incremental, and it's hard to tell. It's when you lose weight, you don't always know how much weight you're losing, and if you stop halfway because you're not seeing improvement, then you'll never really lose weight.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when you look around just real quick, if you just think back of high school or college and just kind of take an assessment of all your friends, everybody's doing all right. Everybody can, more or less kind of pass the class and do okay. And it's not so much, are you the best in class? Are you the super duperest? And then that means you're going to do okay. As I've gotten older, watching people that are way above my skill level, what happened to them? It's not that everybody passed them up. It's that they just got discouraged and then just sunk into a hole. So it's not can you do more? It's, can you not shoot yourself in the foot by the end of the year or the end of the decade? And so shifting, it's almost kind of a offensive defensive type mindset. I'm not trying to be the best anymore. I'm not trying to be super rocket awesome anymore. I'm just trying to go nice and slow and steady and not knock myself off a cliff at the end of the year or end of the decade, So that's kind of a different shift,
Yeah, for sure, totally. I find that like the best improvements are like micro choices or micro behaviors
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
improve over time. It's never like this dramatic change mostly. Normally it's these small incremental things. Like
yeah,
Matthew Hussey, he even uses the term like micro attractions. He's like, it doesn't matter about like these big grand gestures. It's like all about mastering these micro things. So the
yeah,
big thing is beautiful.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, yeah. He's really good. Matthew Hussey, I like him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's great. He's an INFJ in
yeah.
the
I know.
system.
Yeah, one of those handsome Darren Brown types.
He very much is. So Dave, I saw your interview with Benjamin on shadow functions, and it was really good. And I'm wondering, you talked about growth mindset and Zen state versus fixed mindset and the savior demon game. So I was wondering if you could go a bit into that.
Yeah, totally. So growth and fixed mindset is one of those things that we kind of stumbled upon years ago, like everybody else, and just we kind of just threw it in our bag of like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting. But then we've just been paying attention that we can continue, we continue to like reinvent it or rediscover it or refigure it out. Like as we'll kind of dive in, starting with our own personal lives, like why am I feeling stuck, or why is that person feeling stuck, or why can't I get the thing done, or why is this person so aggressive? So we're usually always starting our psychology research from a position of fight or pain or anger or real life. Like we never, ever, I don't want to say never, but like 99% of the time, we're never like, let's go down to the basement and study psychology. It's not that. It's like, okay, so we're in a fight with like Cody's principal at school, and there's some issue there. And that's when the psychology is like hitting us in the face. We're like, okay, so as we're settling this issue at school or whatever it is, let's also pay attention to the psychological forces that are going on, and we'll just kind of write some down and make a game out of it. So it's like the growth and fixed mindset was something that like it kept coming up. And then specifically, it just seems to be that like just in our demons in general, we all feel very stuck, very fixed. Again, defined by Carol Dweck, her work on growth and fixed mindset, where you just kind of have this defeatist attitude. You have this attitude of, well, I tried that, it didn't work. There's like a speech pattern to it that she tracks really well in her work and stuff. And so you'll see that same type of speech pattern, thought pattern, the world is falling, kind of a negative attitude, negative state. And generally speaking, it's always happening to all of us on our demons. Like so for example, it's like an area where I'm strong, say I'm trying to like, work on an RC airplane or something, like, oh, I'll just keep at it until I get the thing to fly stable. But then if it's just like re-updating my phone or getting a just one update, which I don't do, it's like, well, I tried it once and then all my contacts were lost, so I'm never doing that again. It's like, it's incongruent that like I'll blast play a lot over here, I'll sleep blast play, I'll do my savers over here in this area, which is actually far harder to most people than just updating your phone. But then updating my phone I won't do, which is actually so like the relativity catches the personality. Like, why are you a genius over? We'll call it like sudden genius syndrome. Why are you so good over here, but you're so ridiculous over here? And it's just in that the demons or the person's psychological weak spot or blind spot, they just get very fixed and trapped. And so we're constantly trying to like either leverage off of each other. Like, okay, that person's good at that. How can I be more like that? Or even better, in your own self, you're like, okay, if I got this RC airplane to fly, I swear to God, I can get this phone updated. I've got to be able to do it, even though you don't feel like it. So it's a big important thing we see keep coming back to a high priority, the growth and fixed mindset related to the savers and demons.
Yeah, it's really great, the correlation there. And I'm just like really NI fixated on the concept of growth and fixed mindset. Like it always haunts me because I want to understand it more. And so
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for shedding your light on it.
Yeah.
So I have a question about like single activated functions and double activated functions. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let's see. Coming from Myers-Briggs land, let's just say like a standard INTJ. It's like I'm closer to a standard INTJ compared to Shanny, who's closer to a non-standard ENTJ. So for me, I'm getting single activated on my fourth function, my SE, and the activation is coming from the animals. So it's like my NI and FI are wired strong together, which creates the animal of sleep. So it's like it's pinging the NI and the FI. So they're just getting activated once each. This is just in our made up wiring language. This is just how we're kind of looking at it. And so then the NI is getting hit again from the blast, because the blast is hitting the NI and the TE. So now the NI is double activated. And then you run this through with all the animals, and it ends up where some of the functions, simply put, some of the functions are getting pinged more often because of the animal's demand on getting them. So like when you're doing sleep, you need your NI, so that's it's bothering the NI, it's pinging the NI, it's activating the NI. And then for your other functions, they're not getting pinged as much. They're getting single activated compared to double activated. And so you're just ending up with a function that's just not needed much. So not only is the function a demon, but then there's not a lot of demand for it because your animals aren't asking for that information. Like, so for example, my TE is a demon. Technically, it's second, it's high, it's powerful, but it's being asked a lot. Like my blast is asking for TE, and my play is asking for TE. And so I'm continually to have to use TE. So there's a struggle between my FI and my TE, because the FI is the savior, but it's not as much demand. It's kind of a weird nice balance. You get kind of a nice balance there. But then my SE is just like left in the dark. Like it's like my whole wiring is like, you know what? I don't think we need that at all. Like the animals don't need it, the functions don't need it. Just leave that thing alone, So for Shani, her wiring is different, where her FI is fourth and it's double activated. It's going to be similar to you. You're a glass lizard. All your parts are all upside down compared to the Myers-Briggs. So it just adds bottom line, it adds a very interesting dynamic. So take an INFJ, you can have some that are more Myers-Briggs top heavy, where their NI and their FE are getting hit a lot. That's where they're getting double activated or double wired, or their animals are demanding from their NI and their FE, And then you can have some INFJs that are getting hit more on the bottom, where it's more of their SC and their TI, and that's getting more activated. So it just seems to be a very genius way to take a very simple layout of just 4 functions of a Grant function stack, and just very cleverly have 32 different ways that you can wire the same set of hardware, So yeah, that's what we're seeing with the activation and stuff. It does come up a lot too. Like you'll see it in people like why is that INTJ why are they so into their SE? Oh, their SE is double activated. And why is this one not? No, it's not activated,
It's a really good way to make sense of the outliers, like the glass lizards. It's a really great addition to type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder if it'll be like the next INFJ, because it sounds cool. Everyone's like, am I a glass lizard? And then they'll all rush towards being a glass lizard.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm always paying attention to that, to like what is catching on in the popularity of the terms. It's true that like we as humans can't not do that. Like there's 10 X's. We instantly have to go, what's the more popular one? What's the cool one? What's the trendy one? We are very proud of ourselves. Just a side rant. We are very proud of ourselves, like very purposefully, before we started doing the videos a couple years ago, like starting a very subtle yet aggressive campaign to knock down the intuition dominant, as well as like INFJs in particular, and build up sensory. And it's working a lot. Like we'll get people that come to us that are typing and they're like, oh gosh, I hope I'm not one of these analogy driven chaos crazy N dominants. I want to be more grounded with the sensory. And that's just trying to take the being aware of like being a YouTube person, that you're going to be indirectly moving popularity, and just trying to be conscious of that and trying to smudge the needle a little bit, So it's been funny to see it actually work.
Yeah, that's a great way to prevent the special snowflakes
exactly
from all gathering around one type.
Yeah. And then just real quick, we'll pay attention if we knock them down too hard. Like, okay, let's throw them we've been kicking the butts of the TIs too. Let's give them ISTPs a great video. Let's kind of bring them back up. The little double the side,
Gotta piss them off, but not too much.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And so I want to ask you, what does it mean to be missing an animal? Like, what does your last animal signify?
So missing an animal is bad branding by us, Shannon in particular, because she's not here to defend herself. That's a bad way of saying it, because nobody's missing anything. Like we just accidentally like said it like that. So it's going back to what we just talked about, like branding and popularity. So it's like no one's missing an animal, but we'll often missay that as like your fourth animal is quote unquote missing, but it's not really missing. It's just like your fourth function, which is also not missing. Like, I can use SE and you can use FE. It's just like, we'd rather not, and we'll do it last, but when we have to, we'll use it. So usually it's referring to like the fourth animal or the fourth function or both. The last one and or the missing one is in the sense of like it's the one where the life problems are really coming from. Like, so what'll be interesting with you is like with you NITI sleep consume. So it's like you'll have more issues in the FE than the average INFJ, and not as many issues in the SE compared to the average INFJ. You know, so it's like your fourth function, your fourth animal, your fourth letter, whatever is actually could be more like your FE, which is the second function. You know, so like the problem function, the missing function, the problem function, as well as the animal is usually what we're referring to. So it's in the context of, yeah, great, here's the person's silly type. Where's the life issues coming from? And it's like it's that fourth one or that missing one.
True. So it's like the demons are normally the life problems.
Yeah,
So
and then of the demons, there's one of them that's really bad. And like so, for example, with Shani, hers is kind of weird. And I think you would follow the same math. Is like Shani has FI fourth, so standard ENTJ FI is going to be hard and painful and all the rest. But like the math is like her super fourth or her missing one is actually her NI. And so it's interesting because it's like if you're watching Shannon, I think this will be true for yourself as well. It's like it's almost like the two demons. You got the fourth one at the bottom, which is the harder, more painful one, like childish one. But then if it's double activated, you're still getting some work on it. But then there'll be that other one, which for Shanny is the second one. So it's like Shanny's life issues are like FI, decisions and dealing with bad emotions, as well as organization, skipping and too much chaos. For me, I'm just double downing on SE last and consume last, or missing consume or missing SE. So I'm just like getting all of my problems in one area, where some people will kind of stagger it a little bit, because my TE is still a demon, but it's such a soft demon. So I think in the end, it's all the same amount of screw off. It's just that you might have them a little bit more balanced, or you might be going like you've got this rocking one demon function, then you're double doing it on the other one. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. You also have this like great way of putting it. You said like blast last, like they won't talk, and like, play last will leave you hanging.
Yeah.
And yeah, you had this like great way of putting it, and
yeah,
in a very concise way. So that's another pro of like objective personality, is that you guys put type in a concise way that makes it less like woo woo. So I appreciate that. Struggles being blast last. So like I've had like growing up, like I just wouldn't talk. So what would happen is like when I would talk and people were like, wow, insightful. What would happen is they'd go like, I just thought you didn't think because you didn't talk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the most offensive thing I've ever heard. I'm like, of course there are gears turning when I'm not talking.
Yeah.
But apparently, people need to see proof of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll also see with the blast last is like they'll be quiet for a long period of time, and then when they finally do talk, sometimes it'll just be this super unload. Like the giant walls of text that we get of emails oftentimes are people that are actually blast last, and like you just won't hear from them for a year, and then you literally get this 1 year update with like dude, this would be 8 hours to go through all this kind of stuff. So we'll see that too. Like once the blast last unleashes, it's all of this consume that's been bottled up just comes flooding out.
Yeah, and everything like I've sleep digested, it all comes out at once.
Yeah, and everyone's like, whoa, this is a lot to process.
Just throwing it at you.
Yeah.
So on the topic of blast last, I was wondering if you could break down my OP type and let me know a bit about it.
Yeah. So we've typed you as NITI, so INFJ function stack, and we see that being a real thing, that the Grant function stack does seem to be something that we're able to kind of track, independently of each other. So NITI are the saviors, which produces the sleep animal. So it's going to be a lot of introspective of the patterns that you're gathering in, that are going to be personal patterns, same thing that I'm doing. But then you're going to be kind of like trying to figure out the logic to it, and trying to figure out what's truthful, what's real, how does it work, kind of take it apart, kind of very, NT, introverted NT. And then second animal is consume. So it's now going to be down your lower functions, your SE and TI. So it's like you're using SE in a saver state, which is kind of an interesting thing, like doesn't really exist in Myers-Briggs land. And as well as that's where we do call like kind of a glass lizard, where somebody's getting an activation like that on their last function. We find that like the people that have that are oftentimes a little more burdened by the extra consciousness. Like, so for example, me and Ty Lopez, it's just like, SE what? I don't care. Everything's fine. Life is easy, simple, just not seeing down into that fourth function on a regular basis, especially not in a savior state, only when you have to. So that's kind of a interesting trade-off. They're kind of burdened by the extra responsibility of the demon in a savior state, where everybody else is like, I'll deal with that later, you know? And then third is play. So now it's going to be FE and SE are two extroverted functions working together. And that's kind of like both you and I have that in common as play third. So it's like you and I are like, I could do this for an hour. I could throw crazy chaos back and forth. Now you and I both know we're going to go take a nap after this, you know? And we prefer having like some prep before this, which you sent me a nice list of, email questions I really appreciate. So it's like the play is like the third demon. It's kind of the hobby function. It's kind of fun. And we can kind of run to it and use it when our two other saviors aren't working out well. We'll run to the play. I'll just ask people what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And then for you, the last one is going to be the blast, which is also where it gets weird, because that's your top two functions, your NI and your FE, which are at the top. Like those two, even though they're sitting right next to each other, like those are the two that are going to have a harder time wiring together. That's the same with Shanny. And so that's like standard INFJ stuff. Like that's going to be the last thing you're doing of like, let me teach the tribe. Let me go get into everyone else's business and check on their emotions and how are they feeling and what do they want to do. And I'll take care of myself later. Like that's a lot of what the savior blast is doing. And that's what you'll be doing later. Blast also has to do with like controlling the tribe. So like even this is blast, where it's like, not only are you organizing personality stuff, but then you're controlling the tribe, where you're reaching out to us. You're like, okay, I remember when you emailed me, I'm like, how about this time? You're like, no, I'm thinking like months out. I'm like, love it. This is great. So like you scheduled this months ago. So, but it's still like putting this plan together, which is introverted OI, in your case, NI, but it's also extroverted FE, where you're actually executing it in the real world with other people, So that's blast. So this is an example of you kind of in the fourth animal or alpha state or whatever, where a blast laster is going to actually control the tribe, put it all together. There's nothing more harder, because you'd have to go through all of your other functions and animals to get down to that state,
Yeah, I'm really giving my demons a run for their money with the series I'm making.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's awesome. And so I was wondering about the double feminine and what that means.
Yeah, double feminine. So we're tracking first the masculine or feminine of the sensory. So it doesn't matter if it's SI or SE. And everybody's got two masculine functions and two feminine functions. The masculine ones tend to be where we're kind of hold or shove. And they're, I noticed like when just a side rant, when we see people that are like saviors, masculine, and introverted, like those three forces are rather powerful, because it's like your saviors are obviously running the show, right? But introverted functions also run the show, because even double extroverts, they're like, they'll say all this chaos talk, but they really are trying to get their own internal agenda that they may not be aware of. So like introverted functions are very powerful. And then masculine functions are very powerful. Like, for example, you watch with Shannon and I, she has double activated feminine SE as a savior and can't remember nothing. And I have like double demon, screw you, SE at the bottom. And like, I can remember stuff more. Like, where the hell is that coming from? It's like, we see that consistently. It's just coming from the masculinity of my sensory, that I can grab things in the audio, and feels like a simpler set of software. Like, for example, like if we were to do this video just by audio only, like the megabytes would come way down, So it's like, it's a lot easier for my brain to grab and store away. I'm just storing away audio. I'm not storing away visual, where the feminine sensory is storing away the visual. So it seems to be harder. I don't know, something like that, right? So when you get somebody that's like, this would be you actually, like saviors, introverted and masculine. Is that right? So your NI is masculine, your TI is, yeah. So that's an example right there. So it's like your SE is going to be feminine, and then therefore your opposite of SE is your NI. So your NI is masculine. Now that's kind of nice, because it's like an abstract function to begin with. It's already a feminine function to begin with. So your NI is masculine. And then your extroverted decider is the second thing that we're tracking. Then that's your FE. Your FE is feminine. So how you're dealing with the tribe is feminine. We also notice that's how you'll view the tribe. You'd be like, yeah, people aren't really abusive and attacking. Like usually the people with masculine extroverted decider are viewing the tribe that way, you know? So the feminine extroverted decider is like, yeah, they're movable. It's interesting. Like you'll pick up what you're putting out, you know? But then the reverse is true, where the TI now is going to be masculine. So you may be this like cute, feminine, easygoing girl on the outside, but then like have this zone. Like if people get to know you more, it's like when it comes to your way, you're like, no, this is my plan. This is my understanding. This is how it works. And then the masculinity will show up there. Now, if it's introverted, it's not usually as intense. Like our son, Cody, he's TESE masculine. And so those two are extroverted and they're more masculine functions, you know, like the T and the S compared to N and F, you know, and then they're extroverted and they're masculine and they're saviors. So it's like aggressive and punchy on top of aggressive and punchy, and everybody can see it, you know, but then he has a double feminine inner world, you know, which only, you know, like his family will see because he won't let you see him cry, you know, I'll run away and cry. Right. So that's kind of the breakdown of the sexuals. And it's a very fascinating thing to watch. It's another thing that adds a lot of dynamic to people. Like, so for example, which was rather funny because like a double masculine version of your exact type is going to be the other way, where they're going to have masculine SE and masculine FE. So they're going to be pushing and shoving and more aggressive on the outside, but then they won't have that strong inner confidence that you have or your type has naturally on the inside, because their NI would be feminine. And so they'd be second guessing their function, their patterns all the time. Their TI is feminine, so they're second guessing whether they did it right or they're worthy. You know, more often it's just more of a wiggly function. So it's weird because it's like sometimes you'll see like your types can be hard to read because it's like depending on which video you're watching, it's like, oh, I'm getting a lot of feminine from Joyce. Well, it could be that she's in a extrovert demon state, or I'm like getting a lot of masculinity. It's like, oh, she's in a savior, like in her zone state. And then the reverse is true with a double masculine with double feminine saviors, you know, so it gets all weird. Then you'll find people like Cody, it's like double masculine and it's his saviors. And it's rather easy to see, like, oh, that's double masculine because it's hitting you in the face. So that's been a fun, interesting thing to see, is you've got the personality code of the functions and the animals, and then you have 4 different versions on how you can have the sexual energy interplay with that.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
I liked how you talked about projection and how people project their own selves, their inner contents onto the world around them. That is so true. Like, for example, I used to have this friend who would cheat on all her boyfriends. And in each of her relationships, her primary fear was that her boyfriend was cheating on her.
Yeah.
In each of them. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of projection.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's like we put our fears into the world when they may not exist. So that brings us to like, what is a decider and what is an observer?
like type wise or function wise, like a person, the whole as a person, a decider person or a decider function.
We can go with the person first and then the function after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so like we're tracking 512 personality types, but if you were to simplify it down to just 2, one way to keep it really simple would just be like people are either observers or deciders, and this is defined by their life issues and their life problems. And it's no joke. It's very, very extreme. I mean, it's what people will break up over, crime, fears, whether they're protesting in the street or not, or what they're protesting about. Like it is really what the human needs and the fears that drive our human behavior to an extreme degree. And there's no getting out of it. If you are an observer, there is a 1,000% chance this is going to be your types of fears and the things that you like, things that you don't like, without exception. It's very intense. So an observer is going to be an EP or an IJ, where they just have this cyclops single observer function at the top, whether it's NE, SI, NI, or SE, just some type of observing function, doesn't matter. And then therefore the bottom is that smaller observer function. So it's just like these two are in a wrestle, and this one is just enormous, and then this one is just this tiny little one that hardly stands a chance. And so everything in life is just getting pulled into this one-sided view of reality. So the world is seen in a very chaotic way, and that's scary, or the world is seen in a very controlling way. And it really divides into those two kind of sections. So for the observers, you got one half that are just afraid out of their mind that they're going to be controlled. And then the other half are like afraid out of their mind that the control that they do have is going to erupt into chaos. Now with the deciders, it's now the IPs and the EJs where they have some type of decider function at the top, whether it's TI or FI or FE or TE, and then they got the smaller one at the bottom. And then it's just this wrestling match where the first one is beating the heck out of the last one. And whatever you got in the middle is relatively balanced, you know? And so the deciders, it's funny when we see people come in through video typing, it's like right away in the first few minutes, we can usually get that coin sorted out pretty quick. Because like for the most people, the observers, when they're turning on their video, it's usually like, oh, I recorded this twice and the thing cut out and my mom's going to interrupt me and I don't know how to upload this. And they're expressing some kind of frustration and trying to process some type of control or chaos with the video typing service or the computer or the thing. And then the rest of their 1 hour video is not talking about John, Jim, Sally, and people in specifics. They're talking about life and in control chaos to some degree. And then the deciders, the other way around, they will also have computer problems or sign-up problems or frustrations, which they'll address in 2 seconds, fully processed, and move on, no matter how dramatic it is. So it's fascinating to watch people jump over the same task, and the observers amplify and freak it out, and the deciders don't. But then as the deciders get talking, their stories always evolve into specific people, specific events, trying to deal with themselves and or others and trying to get that through. So like the thing to really look for is a lot of times, what is the person not processing? Like if you were to watch back the video of you and me, like very rarely are we going to say a specific person's name, especially in context of you or I are trying to process some gossip or relationship issue we had with that person. Because you and I have people relatively on autopilot. Oh yeah, they're jerks. So I'm having an issue with my neighbor. I'll work it out. I don't need to like vent my emotions about that now. It's not a big deal. It'll work itself out. But you and I will sit here all day long talking about the concepts and how does it go and where is it going and the missing information. And it's so obvious that it's hard to see. Sometimes you'll miss. You got to like step back, just ask these very simple questions. What is this conversation about? As well as what is this conversation not about? You know, so that's observers and deciders as people.
Yeah, that really like resonates. Right now, I'm having like a bit of an observer freak out because there are dogs in the background. They're like, "Arr, arr." So I have my mic set for like ultimate like cancel out noise, but there's still like people talking really loud and like doorbells ringing, and I'm like chaos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my mom is I think she's an SE savior, like an ESFP, and like she is constantly changing her mind every 2 seconds, like, oh, I'll do this, no, change, and then she'll like create chaos that I have to deal with, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like she bought like 100 cans of dog food, and what happened is I had to refund them all for her because they weren't the right, like my dog wouldn't eat it. She didn't try it out first. So then it was chaos. And then the storekeeper's like scolding me. It's like, you know, you should have tried out this dog food before buying 100 cans. And I was like, I think my mom just jumps full into the sensory and just doesn't look back.
Wow. Yeah, and like, and while I'm sitting here, I'm trying to process that. Like, I'm in the downstairs room. It's really hot today. I have the ACs on upstairs. I'm like, oh, am I gonna start sweating? Oh no. So should I wipe the sweat off? Like, is she gonna edit that out? Like, oh, I should have put the AC in this window. Like that. And what I'm not thinking about is what the hell is Shan doing up there? When Shan is down here doing video, she's like, oh no, I kicked Dave out of the downstairs room. Is he going to be upset? Did he needed to work? So her brain can't stop thinking about the other person. When I'm down here, I'm just like forget about the other person, but I'm like trying to mastermind, you know, the house temperature. Like that's what my background program is. Just so like you just it's insane. Like you can't not do it, whatever type you are, you know.
It's absolutely, I totally agree. It's an addiction for sure.
Yeah. And like, and honestly, like real quick, what we're doing right there, like therapeutically, the way to do it is like to consciously see it, say it out loud, address it, and then laugh at it. Because there's no going away. Like you and I are going to always have these weird like dog food AC type tendencies our whole life, but to be able to catch a few, see them, and laugh at it it brings great relief to the other people around you, because they're like, oh my gosh, I can see you freaking out about that. I'm glad that you can see it.
Yeah. Yes. I realize that like a lot of my problems with people is how they're chaotic. So what will happen is like I'm
Yeah.
still kind of like grudging over like the dog food and how I had to do that because it just was so poorly planned. And
Yeah.
I was like, and I'm like, well, I don't like to be a bucket for other people's chaos.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. And so my question is, you mentioned like double feminine and double masculine a while back, and I was wondering, do you have like a theory of attraction? Like, does the masculine like the feminine? Is there a
Yeah.
yin to their yang?
Just yeah. Like that. It seems to be like the stupid NIFI that my very limited consume runs back to is like growing up in the 80s. We had these very sexist, racist Bugs Bunny type cartoons that were made in like the 60s, and they would still air in the 80s, and they were so over the top, extreme of like, if you could just get a group of like male writers to just write out whatever they animalistically felt like, and there was nobody that was going to get upset, like what would you see, what would that look like? And it was just like this honest flow of the sexual energy psyche. This is just my opinion. It's same with like why we love and we're fascinated with studying like prisons and stuff like that, because it's like all the social constructs are being, you're down to the very primal, how racist are we really, how sexist are we really, and like you see it in those extreme things when you pull away all of culture. Which, side note, it's also interesting to watch kind of the upward spiral which we're going through right now in the age of 2020, where there's like a big burst of like a lot of social issues and equality. Like, you know what? We want to level up the consciousness of society and not live like animals like we used to. We want to start to bring more equality, but it's something to like, it's got to be like forced into consciousness, Anyway, so like going back to the ridiculousness of, yet the honesty of like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons and stuff, where Bugs Bunny would like dress up in this extremely feminine, sexy outfit to like trick Yosemite Sam, who's this like this masculine, crazy, aggressive EJ kind of character. And it's as simply put as that. And like the thing that we're seeing is like the first thing that was an update to us was that masculine and feminine does not necessarily mean male or female, or male and female. It's like everybody has two masculines and two feminines. And statistically speaking, that yes, and Jordan Peterson kind of gets into the statistics of this, like, yes, most males are more masculine compared to most females that are more feminine, but the overlap is pretty there's a pretty significant overlap. Like, and with the dawn of YouTube, where you can meet people besides just the people that live in your town, very quickly you see, wow, there is a lot of feminine males out there, and there's a lot of masculine females out there. And that just falls on the relativity of their functions. Yet, still the generalities of most feminine energy is landing in the female party versus most. I mean, you get the idea. It's you get the overlap in the spectrum, and so the opposites absolutely attract, just to an insane simplistic Bugs Bunny degree. The masculine is attracted to the feminine is attracted to the masculine. And that largely has to do with, I guess you could say, the functions, but it seems to be more than that, And so, for example, we'll see, like for example, tomorrow we have a friend coming over that we know, and he's a male and he's double feminine, and Shanny and I already know, and I could, we already know that his wife is most likely going to be double masculine. It's kind of like little cues we've picked up from talking to him, but we haven't met her yet. But chances are she's double masculine, and we see that consistently. And she'll kind of play the more, we'll see that the double masculine female will play more of the masculine role in some regards. And like, it just seems to be like roles, And Shannon and I have this a lot too, where it's like I've got the feminine TE. So it's like, I play the feminine role when it comes to like housework and dishes and stuff like that. Like, I love the cooking, I love the cleaning, I love like doing chores, like what would be regarded as like feminine type energy or whatever, like the helpfulness. My feminine TE wants to kind of give and be helpful and be moved, and is very movable. I'm not trying to be masculine with the T. I'm not trying to shove with the T. That's Shanny. She's more of the masculine role in that regard. And so it's been a very like a very honest, freeing, yet very simple. It makes a lot of sense to just look at the sexuality in a spectrum like that, and then recognizing that like that I'm in the feminine role here, here, and here in our relationship. It makes it a lot easier, like when we go on car rides or we have some task we got to do for business or we're meeting people. And it's like, she needs to be person A. And that's how we'll say, like, you're person A, which means you're the masculine. Like, you're going to drive this ship. You're going to punch through. You're directing. And then the other person is the person B, the feminine, the supportive. And to be able to interchangeably change those roles. And then also being more conscious of, okay, so where is my masculine? Oh, that's in my FI, which I see that. And then my SE demon. And then being more conscious of that, of like, I'll get the aggressive, grabby, consume, aggressive, animalistic demon SE. It's like, oh wow, that's where kind of my Hulk monster is, or that's where my aggressive masculine energy comes from, which is a demon, which is like damn good to be aware of that. Because you have like masculine SE on the top, like the person knows, yeah, I'm a bruiser, I'm a little Chevy, I'm a little rough. But like you have it at the bottom, like you don't know that, like you kind of want to know that, So that's what we see. And then it's just been a very obvious spectrum of when people date and are attracted to each other, that very consistently that they are some form of opposite. There's some form of mismatch. And I also see, just real quick, it doesn't have to be exact. It seems to be the more the better kind of thing. It's not mathematical, it's not exact. It seems to be that you are assigning roles. Like, okay, I'll be feminine in the kitchen and you'll be masculine over here. Like the roles are being divvied out. Where we see the relationships kind of go weird is where there's like contradictory roles. Like the couple, they both want to be masculine over the control of the garage, and that's where the fights are, or they're both feminine where they're like, well, I'm not going to raise the kids. Well, I'm not going to raise the kids either. And like now they're overlapping in a feminine role somewhere, and that's where there'll be problems as well, So anyways, I don't have a lot of super ST data on it. It's something that it's one of our top priorities of focused interests, not only with the attraction with the male female, but then the spectrum that goes into gender and LGBT and that whole world. And so it's something that we want to have more good clarity as we get more data in over the years, then have different people that can kind of sort that out for us. But yeah, it's fascinating.
Now I can like draw a line of best fit about all like the guys who like me. Apparently they're probably double masculine or somewhere around that line. It's fascinating to learn about attractions among types. So yeah. I was wondering, I forgot to ask you this before, but what is the growth path of my type?
The growth path, that's a good question. I think it's very general. Like for what we're doing or what we're finding ourselves doing is largely a couple of things. Is number one, trying to figure out, or if you could discover what your savers and demons are, what your natural tendencies are. So like, okay, I'm gonna have a hard time with blast and people and SE to some degree, etc. But then like using an objective reference point, an objective goal, because like the problem is the subjective nature of our savers and demons is we just talk ourselves off a cliff. Like we see reality based upon our savers and demons. That's the most extreme thing that we're seeing. And so like the problem is subjectivity. The problem is you are geared to just see this spectrum of reality, and then the opposite type is to see that spectrum of reality. So the answer is some kind of balance as well as like objectivity. So like the people that were like typing every Tuesday in the classes and stuff, like that is kind of the thing that we're finding ourselves moving towards, is like there are people that have found their way out of the unconsciousness and the addictions and their saviors. And all, they don't have the terms for it, but we're seeing what their type is and going, well, you've discovered your demons and some objective goal or whatever. So I think yourself, just like anybody else, it's going to be getting a conscious understanding of your saviors and demons. Shannon and I like to say, try and catch a few, or we'll say, it's like, see if you can catch 10 times a day where you're being a blast last, demon SE, demon FE or whatever. Like try and catch 10 of those a day. There's 100 of them going on. Your brain's going to delete them all or not see them. But you try and catch as many as you can and build the consciousness of that imbalance. But then not doing that in a subjective bubble, because then you'll be like, I caught some, I'm doing good, says me. Like that's the original problem, says you, But then the second thing is taking the consciousness of the code, the savers and the demons, number one, and then leveraging it against the hero's journey, number 2. Okay, so how has Tony Robbins gotten out of this? How's Gary Vee gotten out of this? How's Jim Carrey or Tom Tom? Like looking at other people that have same, similar, opposite. You can look at their code and relate to parts, and then move towards that objective direction of trying to get balance and stuff. So that's kind of what's evolving for us. That's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, that really tracks with people in real life. Yeah. There's definitely that. People get stuck in their savior fixations and they leave everything else behind in the dust. So
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is, are there any INTJs you've typed that you really relate to?
I'd say, like, not to be too general, I'd say all of them, I'm trying to see myself, like having demon consume. Technically, I have an introverted animal last. So like my sleep last cousins, I'll have a hard time seeing myself, So like, you were saying earlier, like doing these video series is doing the blast with the tribe is like a great way to push yourself. For me, it's actually the editing. Like when I go back and I have to edit myself, I have to like SE and like FI, like that's been kind of awakening for me. So it's like when I see other INTJs come through, I am trying to relate to them as much as I can in order to see myself. Like so. For example, just the other day, our neighbor, the other neighbor, same type as me, except he's double feminine and he's blast sleep rather than sleep blast, but same pile of problems, right? And just we were bringing the trash cans out to the street, and he kind of came running up and caught us and started talking to us, and it was just this very intense, awkward 15 minutes of Shannon and I both watching him just trying to process missing information. He's like, "Hey, you guys were gone the other day." Like, "Yeah." He's like, "And then like the box that I was supposed to get, like the box didn't again, it's all about things and missing information. It's nothing about people. And the box didn't show up, and I thought it was at your house, and I went to your house and you weren't there, and I saw this thing, and hey, do you have a drone? Do you fly a drone?" I'm like, "No, I got an airplane." It's like, "I thought it was a drone." I'm like, "No, dude, it's an airplane. I've been flying it for like 2 months, like flying over your house." Like, I thought that was a drone. I just heard it and like didn't even sensorily look at, like, I already know what that is. Like, won't even sensorily look at it, Just this 20 minutes and then like long pauses between each, just bugging out on random, silly, missing information, and then going into the economy and the job. There's everything. And I'm just like, and it took me a good, I guess I'm still processing it. See, notice that, like, I'm processing the missing information of the missing. So it's it's like the reaction is, "Oh my gosh, what a freak." But then it's like the relate to of like, wow, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be trapped in this clown house world where your shoes are constantly missing, as an analogy, like missing, like what happened? Where did it go? And trying to put that together, So like Ty Lopez, I'll relate to his over crazy blastness, where he's constantly trying to teach a lesson. Tim Ferriss, I'll relate to the extreme drive and need for efficiency. So I'm constantly trying to get as much as I can out of all of them, in some scary, sad hopes to try and see myself to not continue to be an INTJ.
True. You said this statement before that if you're cringing, then it might be reminding you of yourself.
Yeah.
So that's how you know someone is of your type, because a part of you won't want to be that.
Right. Absolutely. Or at least a function. You'll see other blasters or whatever, or demon FEs. You'd be like, they could be a totally different type. But yeah, very often.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's so true. It hits too close to home. And you also mentioned this point before about how like Jung originally wanted the 16 types to be like a kind of like diagnosis. It's not actually something to label yourself with, but something like you can overcome. And it's like a diagnosis to overcome instead of a type that you stick with.
I know, right? Yeah, that's something that we're trying to jab people at a little bit of, like you're making fun of your personality disorder. I'm an INTJ. It's like that you're saying I drive a car that the 2 front tires are flat. You're bragging that you don't have SEFI or SATE. Like, what are you bragging about that imbalance? Like, that's not something to be proud of. Well, I got this type, which means these tires are flat, not those. So I'm better than. It's like, these are just a starting point to know where is half of your program off. It does, just kind of a side rant, this does kind of bring in, more NI. Like, the evolutionary psychology worldview is basically like, evolution is designed for the human species, and it works perfect. It's designed to get all of us to have these crazy delusions of like, you know what, screw you, I'm going to run over that hill and I'm going to go do my own thing. And therefore the species is constantly going up because we're scared, we're hurt, we're offended, we're driven, pain, pleasure. So we're all constantly chasing our delusions, chasing our dreams, which is now moving the species forward. And which is great for the first 30 years because you get to find new territory. Your savers were right. You're the termite that found the woodpile. Hooray for you. You get to reproduce. Your genes live on and everything works out great. The issue, I think, a lot of it is like, we now have kind of like conquered the jungle. We're all just kind of sitting around like, yeah, I got food. Yeah, we found literally found every place on the earth. Google Maps. We found everything. Like, we beat the game. Evolutionarily speaking, screw you, squirrels. We won. We got all of it, So now it's like, it's left with this huge void of like, well, now what do I do for the next 60 years? Just sitting around, staring at each other, playing games. And so like, now it's like evolution is like, well, I don't have an answer for that. I don't need you to do anything else because you've already done it. And I sure as heck don't care if you're happy. I don't care if you're fulfilled. I don't care if you're balanced. I designed you to be imbalanced so you'll fight each other, so you'll spread, And so it's like, whoa, that was a big thing that really sunk in for me. It's like, okay, if I am going to live to be 80 or 90 years old, that's now on me. It was evolution's job to get me the first 30 years, which it did. I was a raging maniac and I proved myself and I got married early and then divorced and did a business and then it fell apart and got friends and got enemies. And I played the game for the first 35 years and evolution is like, okay, my job is done. And so now it's just like, it's a deep, very deep self-responsibility kind of thing of like, if I'm going to bring balance to my life and I'm going to stop these tidal waves of chasing my tail as an IJ, that's all on me. And evolution is just sitting there with their arms crossed, like, I'm not going to help you. And so that's been a big thing that's really kind of set in of kind of going back to what you're saying of like when with all that said, with all that NI, that's a lot there. It's like when people are like, yay, my type, I'm like hearing that in the context of everything that I just said of like, you got a long way to go. you got a lot to, great job. You got the type, you got the best type ever. Anyways, a lot to balance if you don't want to hit that predictable tidal wave that happens next year of your exact type, So
yeah, it's like a good tool for diagnosing your voids, and it's good for knowing where your tidal waves are coming from. So you're totally right with that.
Yeah, because it's like the cat's out of the bag, and like it's hard for us to describe what we're actually really seeing at scale. Like to be sitting here for all these years watching all these people that are just turning out to be more and more the same. And I know I have NI that's like forcing it anyways, but it's very much like it's the look on Darren Brown's face when you really kind of get him in an interview. He's just like, like just he just sees the same he's gotten down to the core. It's the same forces. So it's just like, it's been a lot for us to emotionally process, to talk to a lot of 25-year-olds or even our 9-year-old, where it's just like, look, kid, I know it's going to happen. Like 9-year-old who's going to go off the dirt bike jumps like I did. I got, scars here, broken arms. Like I already know it's going to happen. And then, the way that you're interacting with the kids, like that's going to get you, the kids are going to beat you up for that or whatever. You're going to have bad relationships. So it's like, you're sitting there watching people like, oh, here comes an EP that thinks they're out to control them. Like, here we go again. It's like, it's the realest thing in the world to them. And there's 100% chance we all know where this is going. We've seen it every single time, just ad nauseum. And then to watch it like happen the next couple of months, you're just like, that's kind of hard to process. Oh, that's taken us a while to process, where you can see it in others. Exact detail of how they're going to walk off a cliff in their respected type. And the thing that has helped us with that is kind of playing the time game of knowing how long it's taken us to get some consciousness of our own patterns. And I guess what we've done to like to process the like screw you factor, like just picking on the EPs because they're not here to defend themselves, is like you'll see the EPs like going off their chaos thing, and you're like, you're gonna get so controlled by the tribe for that eventually, you know? And to manage the not wanting to hate them for that, it's just kind of like, I'll catch you on the next one. Eventually, as you get older, year after year, when you finally see, oh, I'm getting what's going on, I want to be there for that person when they have their turnaround, you know, that's helped us a lot, especially with our son Cody. It's like 9 years old. It's like, I can't get through to him as a 9-year-old, but I'm like, let me shift my FI to when he's 25. Let me let him go through a lot of this stuff. Of course, try and prevent it, but he's a kid. He's going to want to do it anyways. And let me reserve some energy and reserve some love that when he's 25 or however old, that he finally starts to go, I'm starting to see it, that I'm still there to have a relationship. You see a lot of parents, they're like, I tried to tell you 10 times and you said, screw you. So now that you're in need 5 years later, screw you. You know what I mean? And so that's been hard to process. Just knowing too much information, I guess, knowing what's going to happen with people's lives and trying not to go crazy about it and trying to still be there for them, even though you told them so 10 times, you know. I guess it's like that.
Yeah, it's like predicting their big life problems. And the thing with that is, I think Carl Jung has like a quote where he says like something about mastering your shadow, and if you don't, then your shadow will direct you and you will call it fate.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it seems like you're doing a great service to the type community.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah,
Those quotes on Carl Jung about the darkness are just dead on. That's exactly what we're seeing.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so my question for you is, what is the most meaningful part of your work?
I'd say pretty much what we're just talking about, like seeing people have their wake ups. And I've noticed too, like right now, this month or the past couple of months, here halfway through the year 2020, we've been starting to do the videos. When did we start? 2018, I guess, when we started hitting it full time. So it's been about 2 years that there's been quite a few people that are starting to wake up now that it's really starting to hit them in a deeper level. And it's the most meaningful thing that Shannon and I experience is like when we get the email or the phone call from the person that we know them, we've known them for a couple of years, and they're sending that like existential, deep death, deep despair, deep like, oh my God, the bottom of their life has fallen out. But they also are standing on some consciousness and responsibility that they are aware of, that's part of the journey. So it's not like they're falling down the hole and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to die for real. They're not totally losing it because they have some kind of a framework of like, wait, this was supposed to happen. This is part of the journey. And so they'll have a very double decider type conversation of like, I'm going through the worst hell I've ever gone through. My life is absolutely miserable. I'm crying every day. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I feel trapped. I feel horrible. This is all from me. I'm finally seeing how much my abusive saviors are causing everything. It's not my boss. It's not my mom. It's not the economy. This has been me all along. A lot of times it's got to wait till a little bit older, usually 30s or so. And but then at the end of the email is like, and I've never felt so free. I know this is part of the journey. I'm going to take this day by day. And it's just like you have this friend in the darkness, because like Shannon and I going through all this stuff is a very, very dark time that we never got rid of the darkness. Like, it's like, if you come over to our house, it's like, we're just like sitting there tapping our foot. Like, can we talk about darkness? Can we talk about death? Can we talk about just existentialism? Can we talk about depression and pain? The stuff in the light is only half the coin. It's like watching a movie. You're like, can we get to the car chase? Can we get to the struggle? So seeing that in people where they're getting down into the deepest, darkest darkness there can ever be for their point of view, and then to see them start to come up out of that hero's journey. That's the most meaningful thing for us. It also is like a very personal thing for us because it feels like friend, a deep kind of connection there. So yeah, that's the most meaningful thing for us.
Yeah, it's like helping people with their savior trips where like there's something like called ego death, and I wonder if our ego is heavily linked to our savior. And so helping people with their egos and helping them die to the worst version of themselves to be reborn to the best version of themselves is like very fulfilling. And so like be on their journey and to be the like there and to have helped them and to know them personally. It's like, wow, like they're really having an impact. This is all worth it because there's an impact.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Yeah, it really is. It just, when I was going through it, just like I have a connection to CT Fletcher and Greg Plitt, because like those were the two that I was listening to every night when I was going through the hardest times, the deepest times, just crying every night. I'd go over in this, you know, it's just like out of a Rocky movie, this underground dungeon basement, like at ground level, you know, so you like look up out the window to see the lawn. And I'd have like these 2x4 squat racks that I built, you know, because like I can't go to the gym, and just like lifting these heavy weights, you know, with their music on, their motivation on. This is very like FI masculine, and just crying constantly in the dark. And Shanny, you know, I wouldn't let Shanny see me, and it was just like I got a real personal connection to Greg Plitt and CT Fletcher, because it was their words that were getting me through that. Now I never got to meet them physically in person or whatever, but it's the same thing of like, those are my older brothers that they're aware of this. They've gone through this to the extreme, far worse than what I've gone through. And to be a friend, and then to like I remember making a vow, like in that room, going, when I get out of this, I am going to come back around and be that person for other people. Like that's what I am going to do. And so to be able to be a part of somebody's life, it's like, it seems like the world has knocked them down into this hell. Now we may be like throwing things at their head and like telling them about it, but it's like, we're just doing stupid YouTube videos. There's only so much damage we can do. It's really their own psyche and their world is what gets them down to that point. And then to see that they'll like call to us and be like, wow, your words are really helping me, or I'm really thankful, or I see that you've gone through this too. And like, thank God there's somebody else there. Like that was like me with Greg Plitt of like, well, if this guy is speaking of the darkness in such clarity, then that's a straight path out of here. Just follow what that guy says, you know? And to be that for someone else. And I also feel like, this is again, very NIFI. I feel like a kindred to like the spirit of Greg Plitt is like flowing through me to them. And just, you know, you just get crazy in your head. It's just very meaningful to see, to be there for people that are going through the darkness. And then last point too, seeing people that, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but like that have gone through it years ago, and to see where they are now, to watch, like once somebody breaks free, it doesn't matter how far down you go. It's kind of like teach a person to fish or give them a fish. It's like once they learn to fish, once they learn to be conscious and to be responsible and to resolve darkness and resolve pain and resolve contradictions and resolve unfairness, like once they learn how to do that even a little bit, like no longer is there a limit. So it's not like they get back up to a point to where they were and, you know, they're back to normal. No. There's no going back to normal. They just go up on this forever growing journey to where every time you talk to the person, every 3 months, they're at least, you know, there's a couple percentage points ahead of where they were the last time you talked to them. And now to like have somebody in your life that is that dynamic and growing and full of love and, you know, positivity, that is now, you know, just a very fruitful thing to be around, you know? So just this huge positive circle that happens that used to just be a myth, because I would hear the people talk about it that got through it. And I sure as hell hadn't gotten through. So I had to just believe, this is again part of my demons, trust the sensory of the tribe, you know, to get through that, you know? So yeah, it's been a crazy thing to really see and really kind of step back and just, also see that these are just kind of universal forces. It's not super magical. Like you're depressed. Okay. There's like my phone doesn't work. That can be fixed. It can be diagnosed and fixed. And guess what? If you have the exact same phone with the exact same problem as the other guy, it's going to be the same solution. It's not special. That's the biggest thing I can say is like, you're not special. Oh my God, you're not special. Whoever you are, you're not special. People have the same or similar type, have the exact same problems, the exact same reasons. Those have got through it have the exact same solutions. It's just nauseating how much we are not special, including our problems. And then it just becomes this thing of like, oh, this wire goes here. And then all of a sudden, it's not that simple, but like whatever the issues are, they can be balanced, they can be fixed, they can be built up. And we're not, you know, single observers, we're not trapped alone in the dark. We can find the missing information. And to us as observers, it's like, I can get through the pain. I can get to but I keep getting lost. And this stuff really has kind of helped us go, here's the path of getting up out of the darkness, follow the same path the other guy did.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we're not special. Our problems are archetypical,
Yeah.
and that they can be solved because another person has dealt with your same archetypical problem as you
Yeah.
have. And so you guys kind of serve as guides, OP guides to help people outside of that dark tunnel that you give them the light out of the tunnel because you've seen this tidal wave before and you can
Yeah.
inform them of it. You have that. And it was so nice to hear like what you find fulfilling about your work because it really like goes back to the human needs, which is so like intrinsic to OP, and it's the growth and the contribution, and that
Yeah.
to be able to contribute to someone's life, to be able to let them grow and to like give them something meaningful that it goes beyond your lifetime too, because
Yeah.
these things stick with people. And
Yeah.
it's like something beautiful that you're contributing to something greater than yourself, and you're working towards that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also too, it's like we're also really seeing it's so not about the scale. It's just like we'll get some of the most fulfillment from just like talking to or working with our neighbors. It's like the scales have nothing to do with it, whether you're helping 1 million people or 1,000 people or 2 people. Like to really compound reward is when you hear about somebody that's gotten some information or whatever, or some breakthroughs, then they pass it on to their friends and family. Like that's just what gets really rewarding. There's always, and that's part of like growth too, is like there's always people out there that are in a worse situation or struggling with that thing that you just solved last year. They're still struggling with, and then to see the ripple effect of being able to see this person pass to that person, etc.
Yeah, this ripple effect of goodness that
Yeah.
your mark leaves. It's really quite. It's kind of like a teary-eyed moment because you sit back and you look at all of the outcomes of what you've done, and it's like you realize how important it was, and you realize that you really gave something to the world that was like valuable, and like you can rest knowing that it's not about like quantity, it's about like quality. Like you can like helping people on skill is cool and all, but when you have that quality connection with someone, it's like it really like drives home the fulfillment for you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It reminds me of like something Shannon and I are becoming more conscious of is like with the internet and stuff, we have the ability to do very large, meaningful, big, powerful things, whether it's a business or ops or a mission or whatever. And it's also interesting to see like what your body is hardwired to respond to. So like Shannon and I are consciously bringing back in more hobbies and fun time and free time for us. She's working on makeup, and I'm getting back into RC planes to some little degree, because it's like, okay, at the end of the day, this random, stupid, silly thing of playing with this makeup or RC plane is like what gives my body a juice of savior energy and happiness and fulfillment. But like recognize that as just a program. Like don't go live your life that way. That's what I used to do. And then it gets addictive and it crashes over. And it's also too, it's like the body doesn't respond to numbers on a screen. Doesn't respond, whether it's a bank account or subscribers or views or whatever. Like the body responds to the one-on-one physical meetup. I mean, like video or phone call kind of helps, but like the nothing, like it's just like, would my body want to share information with 10,000 people live or hang out with the 2 people that are coming over tomorrow? Oh, I want to hang out with the 2 people coming over tomorrow. Because it's just like there's a real tribal connection that like I know it's more meaningful to help more people, etc. I get it, but it's like there's something in it for yourself as well, that your body gets a charge, it gets an energy, it gets a connectiveness that you get from the one-on-one experience. Now it wears off in a couple of days or so, and you don't want to go back to doing your job or whatever, and you got to dig deep and find your meaning or whatever. But it's been great to kind of consciously be aware of that and using it for the long term to stay consistent, to not let the ups and downs knock us around where you get too high or too low, and to be able to understand where those forces are coming from, of like, oh, I need to dig deeper into meaning, or I need to go dig into the hobby where I get my body recharged or whatever. And understanding, because if these all are different default programs, rather than just letting them run at full blast and you're just on this unconscious ride, it's very much like health and fitness. We're like, oh, you need vitamin C here, It's like, oh, you need a vacation here. Oh, you need to go down to a soup kitchen and give to others and do something meaningful that's not fun. You need meaning here. Okay, that's enough. You've been doing it for 6 months. Now you know what I'm saying? So that's been exciting, because we've been able to get farther than we've ever gone before without getting burnt out or tired or upset or, hurt to a catastrophic degree, because we've been able to kind of regulate it. I don't know, just kind of processing that out. That's been something we've been more looking at the past couple of months.
Yeah, that's great. It's like if it's a number on the screen, it feels disembodied, and it's hard to feel close to a disembodied number. But when you meet people in real life, when you get to know their story, it feels real, and you're really feeling the impact of that reality, and you're like, wow. And yeah, and it all goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning too, when we were talking about the micro things. It's really the micro things that matter, like meeting a person one-on-one, and then like really, really tuning into how you have impacted them and changed their life for the better. Like really, that micro thing really does go a long way.
And I guess what I could share with everybody else out there, what I'm seeing in life, and this is so like ironic, is like the most meaningful things, not the most, but like some of the most meaningful things in my personal life is just hanging out with somebody all day on a Saturday, or hanging out with my neighbor, or helping the old lady, or helping a kid on an email. It's not the big fancy stuff. Like as I'm getting to a point in life where I am getting to kind of have access to the bigger, cooler things to some small micro degree, it's just like, it is more of, so just like, because I see a lot of kids, what I'm saying is like, I'll see a lot of kids who are like, I'm 25, and if I can't like go change the world, I'm bummed out. Like, no. Oh my God, I totally get it now. It is all about working at McDonald's. Yes, McDonald's centrally. It's about finding the lowest job that you could possibly do, or Walmart, or something that is just like, all right, I'll take that job. Something that society is like, that's not the coolest job ever. Because it's like, you go to a job like that because you're like, this is where meaning is at. And if you can't win at the lower job, not only kind of Maslow's hierarchy needs of like consistency, discipline, structure, being a man of your word, et cetera, like all of that, of which the McDonald's is going to kick your butt on. But then if you can't find meaning working at McDonald's, there's so much meaning there. You know how many hard things the employees are going through that work there? Like they need so much love, so much help, so much extra caring time and talking with, and there's so much meaning that can be given there. And if a person can't win on that smaller scale, then, if they had something larger, it's just not going to work out. So it's like that's stuff that I think like all of us know we're supposed to say that answer, but it's been something the past couple of years that I've really seen. Like, so just like the last example, like my FI has gotten to a point to where for whatever reason, not that this would happen, but like if I got banned off the internet, some crazy world or whatever, where like, you can't go on the internet anymore, Dave. I'm like, oh, okay. So like I could get the same amount of meaning I would probably get into like irrigation in Portland, Oregon, like the water that like pulls up in the basement. Like I would probably do something like that just because I can see how much meaning I could bring people that are struggling with the frustration of the water keeps leaking in my basement. Like, ooh, I can solve that. I can TE help you. I can bring meaning. And it's just as meaningful as, yay, we have the answers to psychology. Because in the end, the world blows up. It all gets sucked into a star. It all means nothing anyways. So like going from that, life becomes extra credit. And therefore, is the job to do more than the other guy? No, because there's always going to be Bill Gates is doing more than you or whoever else, It's all just about passing on meaning to some extra credit by choice, subjective, fulfilling kind of way. And of course, take the best opportunity you can. So if we have the opportunity to go on the internet and do personality psychology, then, damn, I'm going to put everything we can into it. But also be ready if/when that ever gets taken away from us for whatever reason, then it's not like your life is over. Like, oh, I had the best job ever and I lost it. And so I see a lot of kids kind of struggling with that internally of thinking that they've got to have the bigger, more meaningful thing. Otherwise they suck. It's like, no. Do what Greg Plitt says. Take C.T. Fletcher. Take the long road. Take the hard road. Take those crappy jobs and build up the discipline, the meaning there. And then McDonald's will kick you out. They will go, you have to be a manager, a general manager, and then In-N-Out's going to steal you. And now you're like, it's going to shove you up the ladder, and that is actually what happens. If you do the ST research, that's what happens in reality when people take that predictable path,
Yeah, it's like never like don't aim for that big thing. Try to master like the small things first. It's all about like success is that micro meaning, building micro meaning. So if one day like that big thing is taken away from you, your feeling of meaning isn't dependent on an external thing, but you are able to source it within. So yeah, totally. I totally agree. It's all about mastering micro meaning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so, Dave, I was wondering if we could go through, like, each of the cognitive functions really quickly and to just see, like, your take on it.
Sure. Yeah.
For sure, and I guess let's start with, like, TE, like, how do you see TE?
TE. So it's like I like to leverage them off of each other. So TE is a coin to FI, and then TE is also like a kind of a coin to TI as well. So it's like let's just start with TE versus TI. So like TE and TI, they're both thinking. So thinking is thinking. It's the same for everybody. So everybody's trying to figure out what works, the reasons, the logic. For me, I have it like anchored to a common pattern that you'll hear me talking about, like Amazon reviews. Like say we're trying to research, a lawnmower or something like that. Like the logic brain, the thinking is going to be like, what works? What reason should I buy this for? Is the handle long enough? Is the price good enough? Is it something that my family can use? If you're TE, you're going to be more focused on, could my family use it? Can other people use it? What are the reasons for it? TI is going to be a little bit more of like, okay, specifically, I need this for my needs. Is this the best lawnmower? Is this the most accurate? Is this the correct one that I should be buying? And so the T is trying to work out the logic of something. The F is on the other side of that, where it's just like, do you like it? Do you value it? And then it'll kind of sprinkle in with like prioritize as well. It's like, should you get the lawnmower right now? Because it kind of looks like you need some weed whacking first around the fences and trees before you get to the lawnmower. Because you already have a lawnmower that's kind of good, but you have zero weed whacker. Maybe you should prioritize the weed whacker. And then also, speaking of FE wise, do you know you live in a zoning area where the neighbors say don't have lawnmowers? Because then you're now, the F is bringing in more of like values and priorities and stuff that's a little bit more abstract to feeling wise. And like thinker dominance will get stuck because they'll be like, it's all about the reasons. And then you'd be like, dude, but your wife just hates it. Yeah, but what's her reason? No reason. It just hates it. Like, accept the value, accept the F, So the T is looking for the reasons. TE is responsible more for kind of making sure that those reasons are kind of on a pragmatic flow, a give and take, so everybody can go along. So the TE is like, I'll take crappy ideas, crappy reasons for the sake of it works for everybody. It's very pragmatic. I love that word, pragmatic. I'm not looking for what the TIs are looking for. I'm not looking for the best or the truthful. I'm looking for sloppy. I'm looking for what works for everybody, And so then the F is now the value. The FI is going to be what is now valuable to me. What do I love? I love this movie. I love this type of music, and if you don't like it, then I don't like you. That's something we see consistently with like FIs, And the FE is like, do I like that movie? I don't know. What's everybody else? What's the reviews? Like the FE will kind of want to talk it out or play it out or appropriately like things that are trying to balance a little bit more. If the FEs are like, oh my gosh, everybody hates this person or hates this president, then I'm not sure I want to be super loud on I like this person. I'm going to kind of go, okay, so why does everybody else hate them? What's going on there? Oh, I am seeing their point of view, and the FE is trying to be aware of what others like, and then sift and balance that out. It's very sloppy. Like you'll hear the savior FEs get the bad rap of like they're what is it, like not genuine, or they'll change their value on it. It's like, yeah, they're trying to work it out. It's a work in process. Same with TE. You'll catch TEs all day long. Oh, they're a liar. You said this was a good idea. Well, I said that yesterday. It's a stupid idea. It's like, I'm working it out, So TE and FE are very similar, and they're trying to just work it out. Whether you're working out the reasons or working out the values, and you're doing it for the sake of getting everybody included. And then TI and FI is more like, okay, this is my ideas or my values or my loves, etc. And then the observers, it's like sensory is sensory. So you either have what is physically here and real, or what is abstract or guessing. We like to kind of put intuition as almost like guessing, So like a lead sensory will, when they're telling a story, they're going to be telling you very much matter of fact of what's going on, the times, the dates, the places, the people. One thing that I'm seeing, again, kind of jumping to an analogy here real quick, is I remember one video we did this on, to give a sensory example, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was on the Hot Wings chicken show, and he's lead sensory, and he's telling a story about Jake the Snake Roberts, and he's telling the story in such literal sensory about how he smokes a cigarette and he puts it down and he wiggles it and there's a trash can, And he's going over in such sensory that like an intern that works at the production company can like do a cartoon overlay and everybody can follow in the sensory, you know, and SE will do that and SI will do that. Intuition, not so much. If you're following Robert Downey Jr., like if you had 10 people watch a 20-minute video from Robert Downey Jr., who's extremely N dominant, and go, okay, what was he saying? Everybody would have massively different interpretations because everything's an analogy, everything's a guess, everything's trying to figure it out, and he'll struggle to bring up sensory, to give times, dates, places, make things literal, paint a physical picture, you know? So that's how we're kind of seeing or catching sensory dominant versus intuition dominant. And then that just comes down to the human needs. Are you SE gathering in the facts first? So you and I are going to be gathering in the facts. So it's just like, you know, if we go to the zoo, it's like when we're in SE mode, I just want to look. I just want to kind of shut my brain off and just kind of look. Like, that's a camel. I just want to look at the camel, take in the sensory. Wow, it's taller than a baby giraffe. That's the color, that's the smell. So we're just taking in the facts. Our intuition will then go, okay, so are camels kind of like donkeys? And then we'll compare them in our abstract later, if that's something we're interested in. If it's not, we won't. The NE will be like, well, that's a camel. So I wonder, did they buy the camels before they bought the donkeys? Did the giraffes come in later? So why did they use that kind of cage versus this? So they're now using their guesser and their intuition. They're trying to like solve the puzzle or the riddle or think abstractly or tool around in just any extroverted random area. The NIs are only going to do that if it's in their zone. So it's like, you know, I'll study Henry Ford because he's in my abstract zone of like, oh, I'm trying to learn how to mass produce something over here. So what concepts is he using for the cars that I could use for video production? And so all of a sudden I'm interested in cars because I want to get through that sensory because I'm trying to get to that pattern. So the NI is very selfish of like, I don't care about the facts or the pattern unless it's what I'm working on. The NE is like, I'm going to just look at patterns everywhere and then, you know, forget about them later. And the SI is very interesting because it's like, it's wanting to link things together. I was watching a video this morning, randomly, YouTube recommended to me an RC airplane video. So I was kind of watching this video from this guy that I'm guessing is lead SI. And like, as he's doing his plane, he's telling the weather, he's telling the temperature, he's telling the wind degrees, he's telling the weight of his plane, he's telling how long he's had it, he's telling exactly where to put the batteries, telling center of gravity. Like, so he's responsible to not give you a smashing gather bag of sensory. He's also not responsible to give you concepts. This plane reminds me of a bird. Like, no, he's not going off in imaginary storytell lane. He's responsible to give the facts and connect them in a line, which is going to make it even easier to draw a cartoon over what he's saying. But there are also specific facts regarding his way of doing things. He's not going to tell you facts that are random or disconnected or cool or neato. The SE will do that. You know, I was working on my plane and then this guy came by with a better plane. I'm going to run over there. That's the SE is going to do, you know? So the SI is taking the facts and then putting them all in order. And then they'll have the NE discovery later. After he puts the order, we'll see the guys do this in our old hobby business. He'll put in all the order of how to put his plane together, do this with 10 different planes. And then one day, years later, be like, I'm seeing a similar concept that relates to all of these planes. And all the NIs are like, that's what I saw the first thing, you know, but I didn't have the sensory to back it up. So that's kind of a run through of kind of what we're seeing as far as trying to catch people out of like, we're trying to break it down to binary coins. Or like, are you over describing the what? Is your story too clear, so clear that we could draw a picture? Or are you Robert Downey Jr., so abstract, kind of where I'm talking? It's a little too all over the place with less sensory. So we're trying to go that way. And then are you trying to organize those facts, or are those facts on a gather? And then are you trying to bring that intuition down to a selfish concept that you're working on? Or is that intuition just all over the place and you're having fun? And that's how we're kind of trying to work it out with the coins, you know?
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Wow, that's a great spiel.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it reminded me of Roger Burroughs. He's one of the people you've typed. He calls like SI specific and random, and he calls NI focused but vague. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of what you said, where you said like SI will have that like personal sensory thing that I'll remember. But sometimes like it can be kind of random if you don't know what that personal sensory
Right.
thing really means and why they included it in the story. But
Yeah.
it's like with NI, like they'll give you that big picture, but sometimes it's focused, but they're vague sometimes with what they're actually saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Really good. Because what you're saying there is what I'm always trying to do is like, I'm trying to get to SI and a function I don't have. I'm like, I really want to get it from the inside out. Like show me an example of where I've accidentally SI'd, which you'll have it in small degrees. We're like, oh yeah, I'm looking at my desk here. Like I have, a stack of gum where I have like the greens, the purples, and the oranges, just like all in physical order. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I have a plan, I have a reason, I have an organization. And that would only be like 3 accidental link ups in one little tiny sensory. But so I'm like, okay, wait. So if I leverage that where I'm naturally SIing my sock drawer or whatever, then that's what SI is doing. I'm starting to get, that's why these guys will get so crazy on, no, I got to get all the things to link up. So trying to like get from the inside out. And I like what was it Roger Burroughs was saying there too. It kind of gives you a inside out kind of feel. You can relate to it, and expand on
Yeah.
it.
I love the inside out feel. Yeah, that's why I guess I like to interview people of the type to see how they say their
Right.
type, because it
Yeah.
gives me like this inside out feel. Like anyone can regurgitate information, but to hear it from inside the mind of the person, it gives you like that level up in your knowledge, and it's like
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just loved your description of the functions, and like with TE, how you were saying it was like pragmatic, and yeah, it's kind of like serendipitous because I made a sheet of nicknames I had for each function, and for TE, I wrote that it's called the pragmatist.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's like serendipitous that you mentioned that word, and then
Yeah.
I wrote it down as like the nickname. So
Yeah.
there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
And it's really great. And yeah, I just love all the work that you do, Dave. You put a lot of goodness into the world. You are on like you're giving MBTI credibility. How do I put this? Like you're adding to I don't know what you'd call this, adding to typology, because you're giving your own spin on it. You're adding to typology because you have your own way of contributing to it, and you're adding to typology by affecting people's lives one-on-one, and that your system truly resonates with a lot of people too, which is why like there are communities formed after this too, because they're seeing something real that you put out in your content, and that's really resonating with a lot of people, and it's really benefiting people's lives for the more positive. And so I just have to give you like a million thank yous and props to you for that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that warm felt FE, right in the FI. It is really good
Yeah.
to hear. It's really good to hear that like the work, the TE work is bringing value to so many people out there. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's working for the tribe. So
Yeah.
that your definition for TE in the compliment for TE. So yeah, thank you for putting your NI vision into this project, into this company, and just letting so many people in on your NI vision. And so it just really contributes to humanity as a whole.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving your contribution to humanity.
Oh, thank you
So
so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on. It was great to kind of talk these ideas out, and it has been fun to watch what you're doing with like interviewing the people like straight. Like I was captivated with you and Benjamin. I was just laughing my butt off of like you two were talking just in such a TI realm as if the camera was not on, and it was just like a fire hose of stealing the insights of TI. So that's been really cool to see what you've been able to kind of do with it too.
yeah, it's just so fun to make these videos and to meet wonderful people like yourself. And so yeah, thank you for putting OP into the world. It's a pleasure to watch your content, to see you and Shan interact, and it's just a really warm, fuzzy community. So thank you, and I guess I'll see you.
Okay. All right. Thanks again.
Bye,
Bye.
Dave.